All right, welcome everybody to Semper Sometimes. This is going to be the first episode of After Action, and I couldn't think of two better people to have because I stumbled across an Facebook post the other day of these two gentlemen sharing a picture of when they were in the Marine Corps together all these years ago. And the craziest part right now for me is that I'm talking to my drill instructor on my podcast right now, and he's got a full beard and he's retired. And this is, the first time I've seen him, with a beard and facial hair, to say the least. And then we have James as well, J Cab, who, he was on the podcast like a year and a half ago. And then since then, has become a mentor of mine and somebody that I reach out to constantly about different things. So to have both of you on here is a pleasure. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to just kind of come on here and just talk about your experience, your service, talk about everything that you guys did, and just share some stories with us about, the camaraderie and the leadership and kind of what it's done for you now after getting out. So if you guys can just introduce yourselves, and we'll kind of go from there. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, James.
All right, so I am James Cabarrus, a retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major. Last duty station was here in Houston, where I currently live at, in RS Houston. Actually, George, I didn't know George was your DI, Benny. So that's pretty cool to find out. Just learned that. George was also a mentor of mine while I was in the Marine Corps. Plenty of just excellent guidance, advice. Just a good dude to know. So I'm excited, man, to be here and just have a few sips and share some stories.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, everybody. My name is George Guerrero. Also retired sergeant major, like James is. I'm Benny's old drill instructor. Been retired now for about 2.5 years, something like that. Yeah, I mean, just I retired at Beaufort. Actually, is where my last duty station was. Came back here to do a little bit of sergeant major time, and ended up in the air wing, which ended up pretty cool. And hopefully we get around to talking about some of that tonight.
Yeah, definitely. So honestly, the first question I had for you guys is just like, how long did each of you do? I know you said 23 years, Jay, and then how long did you do, George?
23 also.
Okay, so in your 23 years, I know that you guys probably have countless amount of stories, but is there any one specific story that kind of stands out to you guys? Like immediately, like when you're sitting around the fire or you're with your kids and they're like, "Dad, tell me a story." Like, is there anything specifically in your time that you can think back to right now that you're like, you know what, this is, a great story that I always come back to?
Yeah, a lot of self-reflection happens when you're in kind of different points of your career, right? I guess it was 2009. So I'm going to be a senior drill instructor at this point. This is after you, Benny. And First Sergeant Carson calls me into his office and he's like, "Hey man, you're going to get a new hat." And we're going through the list of stuff. And I was like, "I don't need a new hat. I already got my team made, whatever." And, First Sergeant Carson wasn't having any of that shit. He gives me this dude by the name of Noe Castillo. And I was like, "Man, I can't have that dude." And he's like, "Why not?" And I was like, "I just can't have that kid." And he's like, "You're going to take him, G. Like, you ain't got a choice." And I said, "Man, I can't have him." And he says, "Until you give me a good reason, that's your dude." And I was like, "Because I recruited him." There wasn't nothing wrong with Noe. It's just, I recruited him. Then it ended up being the greatest experience of my life. Hard worker. He's a chief warrant officer now in the Marine Corps, getting ready to retire. Fort Worth, But again, I was too young even then to have my life come full circle that fast. I recruited him. I was 22, 23, and then I'm 28, 29 now, and he's working for me. I'm a boss, and I'm like, man, my fucking life can't be coming full circle this fast, right? I mean, when your life starts touching, man, like, the man's hunting.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's one of the ones that really, I mean,
it's crazy that you say that because we were just talking about this before I hopped on, but that's where I'm at is I'm coming on my second tour of recruiting duty now. And I have Marines that are getting out of the Marine Corps. And then I have Marines that are now re-enlisting. And then I had three of my Marines reach out to me. And they're like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant, I just saw you going back on recruiting duty." I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "I just got orders to BRC." And I'm like, "Where are you guys going?" They're like, "Oh, we requested New Jersey." So now I'm going to have three of my Marines that are sergeants working in the same. I don't know if we'll end up in the same office, but it's the same thing. I'm just like, bro, like that's crazy that like I have Marines that are staff sergeants now. One of my younger Marines that I put in back in 2019, he became a dad the other day. And
Wow.
it's just it's insane to see. Like I remember, this 17-year-old young man, not with the best lifestyle, like his family's like stuff had all these reasons not to join the Marine Corps and a lot of things that came up. And then now it's like the dude's about to be a sergeant, just had a son. Like it's crazy. It really does make you like your life ages and you're like, bro, what is going on?
Quick, man. Life comes quick. For me, it was getting promoted to first sergeant. So at the time, I was in 2-9 with George. Sergeant Major Carver, Darrell Carver was my sergeant major, and I had got the notice or the message that I was gonna be a first sergeant. I'm like, fuck yeah, gonna be a first sergeant. Let's go. And I'm thinking in my head like, hey, I'm an 03. Surely, and I'm a badass 03, right? Little bit of fucking attaboying right there. I'm like, surely the Marine Corps is gonna see fit to send me to a grunt unit so I can keep this up. Fuck no. The Marine Corps says you got orders to second MLG and then food service company. And initially I'm like, what the fuck is an MLG? I didn't know food service had a company. And I'm like, cooks, like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And so I ended up going over there, man, and checking in. And turns out like that was one of the best units that I was ever a part of. Even though I was opposed to going at first because I had this mindset and this mantra of I'm a 03, I need to lead 03s. That's what the fuck grunts do. But I went over there and really realized that it kind of brought me full spectrum and gave me that whole Mac Taffery experience that we talk about. I mean, these were some of the hardest working mofos I had ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. But it took me going over there to really appreciate MOSs outside of the 03 community. And don't get me wrong, I got the fucking tattoos and the t-shirts to prove it. I'll always be 03 at heart. But like, it's a lot of enablers out there that really in the Marine Corps do their job so the 03 can do his or her job. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that was life-changing because once I got over there and I met some of those Marines and I saw how proficient they were at that job, and I saw how just, hot chow or hot wets could just be completely uplifting experience and the morale of an entire unit, right? And we all know what it is. What is really hot wets in the Marine Corps? It's fucking hot Gatorade. Like it shouldn't even be a thing. It should kind of be fucking illegal. But just that hot Gatorade or that hot soup in the field, like that shit boosts morale through the roof. And so me going over to food service company, looking back now, of course, hindsight is 2020. Yep. I think was one of the best experiences of my entire life. And as I went on, it prepared me to be an RS Sergeant Major because I had a whole conglomerate of different Marines from different MOSs. Mm-hmm. And at this point now, I was able to respect what they brought to the table.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true because when you don't work with them, when you don't work with different MOSs and you don't see what they're doing, you kind of like you think that your MOS is better or you think that this one MOS doesn't really do too much or they don't do anything. And it's not until you actually start learning from them or working with them that you actually see the difference. And that's a huge thing, like from reserve to active duty, right? Like as active duty Marines, you're taught from the jump that like, hey, reservists aren't real Marines, or you hear all this crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden you start working amongst them and you're like, all right, you know what? They're not that bad. You know what I mean? But, but some of the other questions that I would have for you gentlemen, talking to two sergeant majors that, were 03s their entire career, what made you, and this is something that's always been something on my mind, what made you stay in the Marine Corps as long as you did? And then what made you not lateral move? What made you decide to stay in that 03 field? Because let's be honest, a lot of people aren't making it to sergeant major in that 03 community. You know, especially in the times that you guys came in, most people were getting out, you know, terminal lance or you know, maybe corporal or sergeant, right? So what made you guys, one, stay in as long as you did? And then how did you stay in as long as you did? Like, what kept you guys going?
I'll tell you, man. I'll start off with that and the reason I want to go before George is because my answer, like no shit, is people like George. Like no shit, like that. That's it. That's the reason. I left Hawaii and I came over and checked into 2-9, and I think I saw him at IPAC. But once we checked into 2-9 together, like it was an instant connection and immediate brotherhood. Like before I knew it, you know, we stayed around the corner from each other in the old it wasn't Wake Village, that was at Paris Island. I forgot. Berkeley Manor, that's it. So we stayed around the corner from each other. And just like instantly like that, before I knew it, I was driving around the corner, hanging out at his house. My kids were over there playing with his kids. Our families were together on holidays. We were renting fucking RVs, campers from the MVR, and we were taking our families out camping, hunting, and fishing. And so for me, it was never the organization, because you can love an organization, you can love an institution, but that's a inanimate object. It does not have the ability to love you back. But the people in that organization, the people in that institution, they have the ability to love you back. And so when I linked up with George, man, it's like I got a best friend for life. Like, why in the fuck would I ever leave and get out when I got dudes like this around the corner from me? Yeah. Like, I know if I call George and be like, hey, man, I got 3 bodies I need to bury, he's not gonna ask what the fuck happened. He's gonna come with shovels. And so it was that kind of connection for me, man. It has always been the people, the George Guerreros, the Charles Lazards, the Chris Farrells, like the Darrell Carvers, like all these dudes that I looked up to, like they were there, and they were, to me, what represented the best of the Corps. And so it's like, get out for what? Like, you're fucking crazy. I'm staying, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums, you know, I guess some of it up. We don't kid ourselves. First sergeant and sergeant major, we make a lateral move at first sergeant. Like, we know that is why, you know, James ended up at food service company, and then I ended up at a motor T company, you know, and then further on, you know, again, RS sergeant major, and then I ended up at First Crew Training Battalion, and then at the Air Wing. You know, that's where I retired. But you know, when you realize, again, hindsight's 2020, and no one should live their life that way.
Yeah.
But when you have the opportunity and the privilege, really, as a retiree at fucking 42, to stop and turn around and look at your path, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of people in life don't get that opportunity. Amen. You know, and when you do it right, you know, and you catch your breath. My wife slapped me one day and she's like, "You're supposed to be retired, dude. Like, you're still moving as fast as you are." And, you know, that's a blessing that we have. I turned around and so at a certain point, we realize how much we can contribute. And it's not like an actual skill, right? Like, I know I can shoot a gun. I know I I can call for fire. I know I can do CAS. I know I can do all the stuff the Marine Corps has ever asked me to do, because I've operated in all 3 spectrums of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I can appreciate that. But when you can move people to this place that either of you know what this place is, and they're coming with fucking bells and whistles, like, it's like, why do we follow like second lieutenants, right? Like, well, just to fucking see what's gonna happen. Like, that's just it. And, like, there's 2 reasons why we do it. Like, lieutenants are great because you love them because they're so into it. But 2, you just want to see what the fuck's gonna happen next. And you know, in you exists that too. And that's why, again, being an infantry dude, man, it's a different world, because we're trained to be as belligerent as they come. We're trained to be as stubborn as they make them. It's like you're born in this fucking room that no one else can look into. right?
Mm.
And although we're boisterous about it, nobody knows the secret sauce. You know it. And it's easy. And all you got to do is come to an infantry barracks. You see, we used to do, I mean, it wasn't like we didn't do it. We didn't plan it. Like, we used to have like barracks fucking brawls, man. James will tell you. Like, we used to get down, and it was like battalion on battalion type shit, man. But the second somebody outside that battalion showed up, man, it was like a call to fucking action. Like, that just happened. And it was like everybody in the battalion knew their job, man. And they just all reoriented on a target, and it was different. Now we were on the same team. We were just getting it.
Yeah.
And now we're on the same damn team. And it's just, you can't recreate that, man. Like, you can try as hard as you want. I see people out here, and I talk to some people a lot out here that want me to do leadership consulting with them, and all these soft people. I don't do that stuff, man. If you don't know how to train a lance corporal to be disciplined, to pick up his gun and change his fucking socks when you tell him to, you ain't done the leadership thing yet, man. You just haven't. You just haven't. And then to tell him to go run over there for, like, I know there's a 762 going all the way down that motherfucker. Don't matter. That's not what we were talking about.
Yeah.
We were talking about you having to go over there. You know what I'm saying? And you just can't recreate that stuff. And so, like James said, man, it's always been about the people. Because you can look to your left and it's a look, man. Like, one day you got the look, and then you gave someone the look, and it reciprocates. It's like a bad weed, man. It's like carp in a fucking river. It just, you don't see them until you're in the river, and then you're like, holy shit, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what the infantry does to you, man. It's in your blood, and you hear the noise, and the noise we hear is the sound of fucking help. That's the sound of, the SOS, of the bat signal, you name it. It don't fucking matter. Like, that's what the infantry hears. And then you see the river come to life, man. And it's different. Like, you can see blood boil.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And that's the coolest thing you're ever going to see, is literal blood boil in men that are willing to go do fucking weird stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, George mentioned Benny. George mentioned a bat symbol. And I still feel like that, right? Like, so we live in a day and time, man, where, like, people are fucking crazy. Like, so I am not apt to pull over to the side of the road and help you out. I'm not. And it's not because I don't care. It's not because I don't have genuine care and concern for my fellow humans. It's just because this could be a trap. And I'm not willing to risk that, because I got 2 boys that I need to raise. So, like,
Amen.
Call AAA, call the cops. I'm not pulling over. There is only one fucking thing that will make me think twice of, should I pull over and should I not? And that is the eagle, globe, and anchor. If I see on your tags that you're in distress and you're in help and you need help and you're on the side of I-45 in Houston, and I see Marine Corps tags, it's like, the sticker, not so much. You could have got that motherfucker from anywhere. But the tags, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna contemplate.
All right, so now we all know how to get you. So when I come to Houston,
100%. It's like,
you're talking to a dude from Jersey, man. He's gonna
it's like, that's a brother or sister in need. And if a Marine is in need, I don't give a fuck how long are they retired. If I can come to their need or their assistance, I'm coming, because that's what we do. We make a vow for life. Like, and this is not to knock any other branch of service, right? But in other branches, I fully believe that when they take an oath for that term, for that enlistment.
Amen.
And then when their EAS is done. But when we take an oath as Marines, it's for life.
Agreed.
And so I don't care whether you've been a Marine in World War I, World War II, fucking Vietnam, or now OIF, OEF. It's like, hey man, if you need help, I'm coming to help, because you're my brother, you're my sister. And I think that is a defining difference in why we stay in. Because while we're in, we can kind of see that, but we don't fully understand it. But once we're out, even more so, like George said, man, that's the fucking bat symbol. And it's like, if a Marine is in need, I'm coming to help. It's so bad, Benny, I'll tell you this, that when my kids are walking with me through stores and Walmart and fucking HEB, and they'll see it before me, right? They got better eyes. They're a lot younger. They'll see, oh shit, he got an EGA on his fucking arm. or he got a Marine Corps veteran hat, I hope my dad doesn't see him because they know that fucking that 30-minute grocery store trip
Yeah,
just
yeah,
got extended by
yeah,
an hour because
yeah.
we're gonna go through the traditional. Where were you at?
Yeah, when
Where
were
was I
you
at?
in? Yeah, 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 yeah. Who do you
The,
know?
the old butt sniffing contest. And
Yep,
once
yep,
I figure out that they were a fucking real Marine, it's like,
yep, yep.
oh, man, it's the one that popping. It's like,
So
if anything happens in that store, I got
yeah,
your back. We getting
yeah,
out of this bitch alive.
yeah. So it's crazy that you guys bring that up because so when I first got back on recruiting duty in May, I was, doing my job, area canvassing with a new recruiter and my boss. And I was in my Deltas walking around the mall, and this older gentleman came walking out of the mall and he said hi to me. And he was like in his like late 80s. And come to find out he was with The Walking Dead, and his son, it was his son and his daughter-in-law they brought him over to us. And so after we get done talking to the mom, to the daughter and the son, we find out that he had dementia and that he didn't remember anything of his service, and that like he would randomly, the only times that he would ever be able to tell a story would be when he would see a Marine or he would see an EGA, because what would happen is it would bring back a memory. So when he saw us, it was me and my buddy Diao and this other Marine. And as soon as he saw us in our uniform, he started talking to us about when he was stationed at the Pentagon, and he started talking all about like the secret passageways and like protecting like, all this stuff. And but it was just awesome because, like you said, it was about the people. Because this guy and his daughter said, she was like, it's the craziest thing to me. She goes, I really believe in, Semper Fidelis, because she goes, it's crazy to me that my father won't remember anything. He won't remember his grandkids. He won't remember their names. He won't remember anything to do with his civilian life. But he's like, the moment he sees a Marine or he sees an EGA, he'll stop in his tracks. He'll go to the Marine and say, thank you for your service. And he'll immediately start talking about his times back in the war. And it was just crazy. And it was awesome too, because he started crying. And I guess one of the things that they had said is that one of the stories that he does remember and that he'll tell them is that when he was like back in the war, there was somebody that was in a hut, and he was trying to get up there to get into the hut. So he low crawled up there and he hopped into the hut, and he took the K-bar that was at the bayonet, and he stabbed the guy. That's how he killed him. And then now fast forward to like 2-3 years ago, he has dementia real bad, and they're moving the house here in Jersey, and they go to move the house, and the dad, the older gentleman, the grandpa, he pulls out the bayonet from that day, and he somehow got it back to America, and he had it, and he's sitting here showing it to his son, and he's like, "Oh, this is the one," and his son was like, "Bro, it was we thought he made this story up," and then he's like, finally one day he just shows us the bayonet. It was like, oh man,
So you better get
but
away from that dude. He's still got
yo, but it was just an awesome experience, because like you said, it's about the people, and people don't forget, and it is an amazing experience. But another question I would have for you gentlemen, you both came in at the same time. What was it like for you guys coming in at that time? And what was the reason for you becoming Marines? Like, did you know you were always going to be a Marine? Was it because of what was going on in the news and the war? Or like, was it a call to service? Or like, what was going on? And how was the Marine Corps in that day and age in that time?
So I joined in 1998, and so we weren't talking about war at that point, right? We were in a peacetime Marine Corps. It was the back end of Desert Storm, so coming around, you had a lot of the Desert Storm vet guys. Those were all my platoon sergeants and stuff like that. My sergeant's major, probably James's too. We still had a couple Vietnam guys hanging around. Sergeant Major McIntosh and at Ground Defense Security Force in Guantanamo Bay. He was an old Vietnam guy that had really cool stories. But You know, the truth being in the pudding, I went to the recruiting station. I had an appointment with the Navy guy, right? Because everybody's going to be a Navy SEAL. Um, and, you know, my dumb ass thought I was going to be a Navy SEAL too. I was 5'5", about $120, fucking, on a fucking great day, you know. And although I am of the persuasive skin tone, I mean, I swim to save fucking my life. And, you know, that's kind of how it is. And truth would have it that I'd end up in boat companies later. But no, man, like, you know, when you talk to, you know, people in my family, we don't talk about the illegal immigration thing because we're from South Texas, like where it matters. We're in Harlingen, and James knows where that's at now. It's like Bordertown, Texas. And, you know, my dad brought our family over here like the right way. You know, he had a sponsor that he was working with. He built homes, and, you know, he got the resident card thing going. And then he brought my mom, and then, you know, brought the family over the right way. So that's not a discussion that we have as a family, because we don't subscribe to that shit. Like, do it the right way. America did this for us. And, you know, so growing up, I saw my brother go to college, and he did all the college thing, and all he was doing was partying. And, you know, that just didn't really sit with me, because seeing everything that my parents had sacrificed and all the time my dad had invested in us and in the family, really, you know, I wanted to do something. I wanted to show that, you know, we could contribute to. And I had an uncle, Rudy. He was a Vietnam guy, and I had another uncle, Miguel. He was an Air Force guy during Vietnam. Both of them were. And Rudy used to always fuck with Mike, because he was a Marine infantry dude, and so he always called him out, right? Like, he'd always be like, "Oh, we did this," and Rudy would be like, "Yeah, but you fucking weren't in a war. You never shot a bitch in his face." And so that kind of stuck with me. And so I went to my appointment. The Navy guy wasn't there, and Staff Sergeant Garcia and Staff Sergeant Martinez were at the Marine office. And this is funny because later on I would come back, and Gunnery Sergeant Gonzalez became Master Sergeant Gonzalez, would be my RI when I became a recruiter in RS San Antonio. Wow. He was the station commander in Harlingen when I was going through. Garcia was like, he like did that shit in the window, you know, like we always call everybody out, man, like, pull a bar, let's fucking see it. And I was like, what? And he like came out, and he was like, what? And I was like, oh shit, like nothing, fucker. I had an appointment with the Navy guy, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, man. And then we talked, man. He brought me in because the Navy guy wasn't there. And it was just what it was, man. The way he said it, right? Like he said, in essence, what he said, and I used this as a mantra as a recruiter, and it made me really successful as a recruiter too. He said, no one gives a shit. No one cares what you think you deserve. You're going to show them every day that you deserve it. Like, that's the thing, right? And I was like, what? Like, that doesn't even fucking, I was 17. That doesn't even make sense to me. Like, you want me. And he was like, I don't want to have nothing to do with you, dude. He's like, one, you can't do the things that you're trying to do. Not over there. He's like, you're going to need something like this. And, you know, breaking it down. And really at the end of the day, what he was providing for me was an opportunity to be better and bigger than anything I had imagined at that point in my life. Right. Like I was going to be a part of something and someone, a being. And now, as a fucking retired sergeant major, it's like James said, right? I didn't know the Marine Corps couldn't love me back, man. Like, nobody ain't gonna call me. They're like, hey, how are you doing? No one has said that shit to me. And it doesn't matter, because everything that Sergeant Garcia and Staff Sergeant Martinez and Master Sergeant Gonzalez told me at the beginning came to fruition, you know, but it relied and it laid on the shoulders of men that they had never met.
Amen.
You know, they never met Sergeant Major John Paul Corville. They never met First Sergeant Marcel Lett. That's in Houston. James, you got to meet that motherfucker. He's a good dude. I'll get you in contact with him. He was my first platoon sergeant in CONUS. Fucking, you know, dudes. I mean, Sergeant Sarika was my first squad. They never met them, but they were making promises that those men would fulfill later. And just because the way the institution is set up, it's process oriented, right? It's process driven. It's fucking followed. Trust the process, dude. And I did because they told me to. And that's why I was like, fuck, man, like this is exactly what I didn't know how to ever express that to
Mm.
I was 7 fucking team, man, 18 years. I could never express to someone what I and how I wanted to do it. And they were just saying things, and I was like, fuck, like, how'd you say that? And now become a recruiter, you know that too now, Benny.
Yeah.
You hear this story all the time. And so it's like, fuck you, and you hear it. You hear it when a kid is gonna be, you know when a kid's gonna be a Marine, man. You're done, your work's done. Now you just facilitate the process, man.
Yeah.
You know, and if you do it right, you're just facilitating the process. It's a good decision. And that's what did it, man. That's what it was, a great decision, and it continues to be a great decision because
Amen.
of people that made promises on other men's shoulders they would never meet. Period.
Mm.
And they did it at the drop of a hat, man. At the drop of a hat.
I like that, man. I love the fact what George is saying about men making promises that they can't fulfill because they're still on recruiting duty. So it's like, hey, you just promised me something, and you're just hoping and praying that everybody else that I come in contact with over the next 4, 18, or 30 fucking years fulfills that promise. It is the biggest gamble and the biggest game of trust anybody has ever seen. So my story was I was in Columbus, Georgia, which is home of the Army Infantry, Fort Benning, Georgia. Like, why I didn't join the Army, who knows? But I almost did. So I actually went and talked to an Army recruiter, and I'm talking to the Army guy, and I'm signing up, and I went to MEPS. I did my physical. I was a spiff change. Y'all are recruiters, you know what that means. And I was in the Army's depth, like ready to go. Make me a fucking Ranger. Let's get it. And something throughout the process, man, I was in high school one day, and I'm in the cafeteria, and I got in my football jersey. It's a Friday. We got a game that night. And the Marine Corps recruiter walks by, and he says, "Good morning." And I respond, "No, I'm good. I'm not interested." And he kind of looks at me, and he says, "Hey, come here." And so I come over, and he leans over, right? Because he can't say this out loud in school. So he leans over, and he's like, "All I said was good morning. I don't want you to join because you probably wouldn't make it any fucking way." Man, that lit a fire under me like you wouldn't believe. And so at the time, I'm this cocky 18-year-old kid, and I'm like, the fuck you mean I wouldn't make it? Do you know who I'm fucking James Cabarrus. Like, what do you mean I wouldn't make it? I'm like, and he challenged me again. He's like, I tell you what, come to our PT on Saturday. I'm like, shit, say less. I'm there. Man, I came to that PT and got my heart absolutely popped. But what I loved about it was when I got my heart popped from just being slayed, the Marine Corps recruiter was doing everything I did alongside me and motivating me. And so I remember that. The next weekend, I went back to the Army's pool function and I did their PT. And they popped my heart too. But the difference was, I shit you not, the Army recruiter was in the parking lot, sitting in a chair, smoking a cigarette, drinking some coffee, and was like, "Let's go, hurry the fuck up." And I'm like, hold up, time the fuck out. Like, this ain't it. And so, man, I was like, hey, I want to join y'all. I already been to MEPS, I already took my ASVAB. At the time, I didn't know it. Oh, you a spiff change. I'm like, right. Okay, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah. Whatever you gotta call it, dog.
Whatever you gotta call it. So, hey, man, hey, next thing I know, I'm on the fucking yellow footprints at Parris Island. But what did it for me was both branches of service had to suck. But the Marine Corps showed me that the recruiter was willing to go through the fucking suck with me. And that has never, ever changed in 23 years. Multiple leaders that I had, it's like, it's cold, it's freezing. I'm in fucking ISLIC, IULC, whatever. But the leadership was right there with me to go through the bullshit with me. And I was like, I've always appreciated that. I've always respected that. And I'm like, I can deal with that. I had a RSCO, Lieutenant Colonel Major Ash. He's actually a full bird now. And he used to say a saying. He said, a shit sandwich isn't so bad as long as everybody's taking a bite. And that's what I loved about the Marine Corps. It's like, hey, man, like, don't feel sorry for yourself. You're cold, bitch. I'm cold too. Matter of fact, everybody here is cold, but we're all going to be cold and miserable together. And like, for whatever reason, knowing that everybody else that I was around was willing to go through that with me, that made all the difference in the world. It made all the difference.
Wow. Wow. That's I think that's the theme of it all, right? Is just the idea that like being in the suck together, being surrounded by leadership, and that was even more so the reason why you became a Marine. I definitely did not know you were a spiff. I'm gonna hold that against you, you know. But so what would you guys say was, now being out, what would you guys say is like the highlight of your career? Is like looking back, like what was the best part of it? Was it being the junior Marine? Was it being the senior enlisted? Like, what would you say was the best part of your 23 years?
That's a tough ass question, man.
It is, I mean, because it's like who Paul Walker, right? Say you live your life a quarter mile at a time. No, that was
Vin Diesel.
that other guy, Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
And that's what your career is, man. It's a quarter mile at a time. And you're influencing and you're developing and you're building yourself in stages. And every one of those has to have it's got to have a climax for you to have a catalyst to jump to the next level, right? Like you have to peak out to make the jump. You got to bring yourself there. And every time you take a jump, it's a make or break situation, and so I think, saying all that, look, it brings you some realization. I think mine is, as much as I enjoyed being a young Marine and doing the dumb shit that we did, I think being being the first crew training battalion sergeant major gave me a lot of perspective, right? So being a drill instructor, man, is different because you hear the shit in the fleet all the time. Oh man, first sergeant comes out. Hey, NCOs, what can the CO do for you guys? Blah, blah, blah. What's the next thing that comes out of their fucking dumbass mouth? Let us be NCOs, right? Them bitches don't know what the fuck that means. They just don't. They're just cashing the old check that somebody done wrote, and they're like, oh, let's write this motherfucker again. You know what I'm saying? Like, because then they're gonna let us do stuff. They're gonna let us fucking do field day. They're gonna do, and it's stuff that's already on the schedule any fucking way. But being a recruit training battalion sergeant major, man, I read Sergeant Major Wilson's story, Dave Wilson, on LinkedIn this morning. It's pretty ironic we're doing this today because I read it and he's got a picture of him with Sergeant Major Kent, right? And Sergeant Major Kent was the 2nd Recruit Training Battalion in San Diego, I think. And Wilson had got in trouble as a hat, and he knew he was about to get fucking smoke checked, man. And Sergeant Major Kent brought him into his office, and you're 6th and center doing the thing, and and Dave describes the situation that day Sergeant Major Kent took a chance on him. And so Bennett knows that life can get pretty fucking emotional around this fucking guy. Like you're gonna fucking learn. Like that's gonna happen. We're gonna learn. We all gonna learn. And having the privilege of seeing men through, because we got a 22, 23-year-old drill instructor, man, and James knows this through his life that he does now. Like those young men, they ain't even fully fucking developed yet. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of life that's still happening inside of them. I mean, a male brain is even partially developed at that point is impressive. To say that like that dude's got half a fucking clue. But to have the privilege of looking at a dude and looking at whoever and saying, you know what, like, and having the experience, all the catalysts that I'd been through in my career in that moment, and say, you know what, that there's no way that was malicious. That it just wasn't.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about this dude, and you got to think about his career. You got to, and you're looking at all his fit reps. And you're just like, this doesn't fucking make sense. Like this doesn't make sense, And to have the confidence of the commanders around you, based on a reputation you've developed for yourself through years of just labor intensive and emotional distress and stressful enough situations that fucking most people would just go play in traffic about. but you just kind of get through them, you know, and to say, hey, sir, this ain't the one. You know, like this ain't the one. Like, and here's my case. And this to see, you know, to have a commander come back into your office, because there's a thing, right? And James knows this shit. When you go into a commander's office and he wants to talk there, life's gonna be different, man. But you go in, and then he's like, all right, Sergeant Major, I'll get back with you. And then he comes back to your office, man. That's a different conversation. You're about to have a different conversation, right? Is different. And Sergeants Major, First Sergeants, Mass Sergeants, even Master Guns, they know that conversation, and they know it well. It leaves a taste in your mouth that you're like, damn, I just did that shit. But I did that shit, you know? And like, but it's also kind of one of the more proud moments of your life, because you're like, man, a commander came in and he said, hey, Sergeant Major, we're going to go with what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go talk to Sergeant Major and the CO, and we'll break it down. This is our plan. And you're like, damn, you know, I'm able to influence and I'm able to affect someone, even one person. That's enough, because we do this one dude at a time, or one dudette at a time. Like, that's just that's how it happens, man. You know, and I think my proudest moment is that I was privileged enough to never have to look at a commander and say, you're going to have to pick that or me.
Amen.
Because I always had enough people around me, mentors around, that I could just call, just vent and say, hey, man, or say, hey, man, like, he ain't looking at it like that. He's a this level commander. You got to do this. And I never had to do that thing. You know what I'm like? I just didn't. And so I would have to say, when I was able to sit in an executive office and working with a commander and giving him courses of action after they've been vetted and they've been tried out. We already did all the experimentation, sir. This is COA 1, 2, and 3. Boom. Now's decision time, you know, that 98% of the time, you know, he's coming back to you and the XO and be like, hey guys, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Boom. Here we go. COA 2. And you're just like, all right. Because, you know, it's been vetted, and never have to be like, hey, we're going with COA 4 and that's mine. And me have to be like, okay, well, I just want you to know, one, I'm a tell. I just want everybody to know that I don't tell on you. I'm telling that this is not the way this is supposed to go. And I have to tell my boss that was not my recommendation. You're on this ship by yourself, because if they fire both of us, then only the boys lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it is. I was never in that predicament. Amen. And I think that's why I would say the taller end of my career, but it was all influenced by all that other shit, you know, being around belligerent dudes that were stubborn and were asking the hard questions, and, you know, not in a disrespectful way. We're just going to get the answer, man. We're going to let NCOs NCO, you know, like, okay, cool. But what the fuck does that mean? Having the ability as a sergeant major to NCO was probably the coolest shit that I was able to do, because at that level, man, I was able to NCO. I finally figured it the fuck out. Like, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, man, to be an NCO. And at the seniors level of NCO-ishness, it's tiring, man. Like, you know, I still don't graduate from that shit.
Yeah, you're a constant student. I'll tell you, Benny, I had a lot of different, you know, like anybody else that did 23 years or whatever, a lot of different experiences. But I would say one of the most humbling was leaving recruiting duty. So I go on recruiting duty as a staff sergeant, and I leave there, and the Marine Corps had just changed it to where, in order to be an 0369, you had to go through IULC. Right. So
I remember this.
I get out there and I'm headed. I got orders to 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines, where I would eventually meet George Guerrero and fucking Rat Tray. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm already selected for Gunny. I already pinned on Gunny. So I'm fucking good. I do not need to go to IULC. But I know in my heart of hearts, when I get back to the fleet, as a company Gunny, I got to tell other 0369 staff sergeants, like, go to IULC. And I'm like, they'll never say it, but they'll look at me like, bitch, you ain't been. And it doesn't matter that I got grandfathered in or whatever.
This conversation is great.
I needed to go to IULC. And so I was like, fuck it, sign me up. Matter of fact, send me to that before I go to advanced course. And I check on the IU.
Because James Cabarrus loves the winter.
Hey, it's winter time. I fucking hate the cold. Let me tell you something. I don't mind Houston. It's 6,000 degrees every fucking day. I can deal with it. But man, when it get below 60, I got a whole fucking problem. Like a whole issue. So now I'm in Camp Lejeune in the wintertime, checking in, leaving recruiting duty. I ain't worn nothing but goddamn chucker boots and core frames for the last 36 months. Like, I don't even know what a pack looked like. I don't know if we still using Alice, if we got Molly, or what the fuck is going on. So I check in the IULC, and one of the first drills, man, is the fucking IPA. And they put us on this white bus, and now you got to remember, at this point, I'm a gunny. All the instructors are staff sergeants. And one of the staff sergeants is Staff Sergeant Latham, who is, matter of fact, now a gunner. And so they blindfold us, and I ate some humble pie. I told Latham, I said, hey, man, listen, I know you're a staff sergeant. I'm a gunny. Gunny Valora, he was a gunny. And I was like, I'm a gunny, but I don't really know a whole lot because I ain't been to the fleet in 3 years. Like, y'all got all kind of new optics. I don't know what the fuck's going on. So I ate some humble pie, but they blindfold me like I'm a fucking Lance Corporal and put me on this white bus and do the goddamn Verona Loop tour and just drop me off and give me a map and like get from here to here to here. I got to the mortar position, Benny, and they're like, hey, go ahead and bubble up. Now, the whole time I was in 03, I had been in 0311. And I'm like, I ain't ever really paid attention to what fucking Mortarman did, like bubble up. I'm looking at the motherfucker next to me, and I'm like, I got the sight back. I don't know what to do. That whole experience humbled me. It got cold as shit during IULC. And you got to remember, I'm a gunny. Like, a gunny in the Marine Corps is like, God, we're in charge of shit. And we're taking the bus back from the field. I remember one time in particular, Benny, and they're like, hey, guess what just happened? I'm like, what? We just hit an IED. You guys got to hump all your shit back. The tires are blowing out. And of course, it's all simulated, right? I'm like, none of this shit really happened. What really happened was it's 30 degrees outside. Now I got a goddamn base plate on my back. And I'm rethinking my whole life at this point. And I'm like, yo, man, eat the apple, fuck the core. Like, I'm done with this shit. I am over it. But I make it through because people that were around me, they gave a shit. That's it. Like, if I could write a book, it would be The Simple Art of Giving a Fuck, right? It's like people around me gave a fuck, and that allowed me to get through. And I found that has been repeated throughout my whole career. It's like people around me cared. For one. For two, I was never willing to let people down. Like, the worst thing you can do to somebody that believes in you is to quit. Because then you let them down. It's like, I believed in you. I had your back. I was fucking cheering for you, and you quit it. So I was never willing to come back as a failure. So I dealt with the cold and the Lejeune and all that bullshit and eventually made it through. But I would say that that's a highlight in my career because I had to eat humble pie and I really had to rely on people around me because I was a big fish in a new pond that I knew nothing about. So I was totally vulnerable, right? And when I relied on my brothers and sisters around me, they came through. And that just became a kind of a rinse and repeat cycle in the Marine Corps that if I'm in trouble, I can rely on Marines, they come through. And then I've always wanted to be that Marine for other people. So it worked. And at 23 years, I was like, hey man, like I'm good. It's somebody else's turn. It's time for me to slide out of the way. So
amen.
Hey, you ever heard that song? You should have seen it in color.
yeah.
You should have seen that year of James's life in color.
Hey, man.
It was great. You know, in the picture that you saw that started this, Benny, of us at the Staff NCO Club was like, you know, there's a lot to be said about clubs on the base. And I don't think they're appreciated for what they could do. You know, everybody's caught up with some other stuff these days. And, you know, I don't subscribe to a lot of stuff. I stay in my bubble. You know, I'm right on Parris Island. I'm right at the air station. I don't go. I store my boat at Parris Island. I drive on Parris Island, get the boat, and I'm gone. I go to Parris Island to shoot a round of golf, and I'm gone. I don't stop. I don't talk. I don't interact. I stay in my bubble. But there was a lot of things that were done there. There's a lot of frustrations vented. And if you could have seen when Cabarrus was at fucking IULC in color. It would not have been this clean.
not at all.
I am laughing in the background because I remember as he's talking about it, every single conversation is clear as fucking mud, but just with a fucking intensity about it. And I was like, fuck that motherfucker. I'm got him. And I was in a tent that night, like, oh shit, that motherfucker's staying. I ain't staying in the field. Where were you that night? I stayed in the field, man. Fuck that dude.
It was real, man. It was real. And to George's point, the staff club was a place like Thursday night was wing night. It's like, look, I love everything and I had other shit going on, but like that was protected time. That was the time to get together with the fellas. Bispham. I mean, we don't have some nights, man, where like I woke up the next morning and like we all grown ass men in our 30s, and like Bispham is on my couch. And like, you know, I mean, it's just people everywhere. And we all got up and we went to work the next morning. And I think those are the times for me that I will forever remember about the Marine Corps. Because you never know how the night's going to go. Like the night's going to start with wings and a couple beers. But how that motherfucker's going to end, we don't know. What we do know is that Friday morning, we are going to be at formation. We're going to be on time. We're going to do what we got to do. And I think those are the times that I miss. Because like right now working at Comcast, like I work with some pretty cool people, but it ain't nobody there that I can be like, we need to bury a body. Like, motherfuckers, wait a minute, like time the fuck out. What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? So I think, man, that brotherhood and that camaraderie, I'm convinced that there is nowhere else on the earth that you can find that outside of the Marine Corps. It's not.
Agreed. So my last question for you guys, wrapping it up, is just now being out of the Marine Corps, what are things that someone, I don't know who it was, but somebody told me, it was another sergeant major, but one of the things that he told me was, he said, nothing prepares you for the last day in the Marine Corps. And one of the things that I would ask you guys is that, like, for those people who are coming up on either one, getting out or retiring, what advice do you have for them now being out, especially you, Sergeant Major, you, George, being out 2.5 years at this point? Like, what are some advice, some mental health things, or anything that you can like kind of give to anybody who's, on their way out?
The only thing I think I could offer is to tell people to you can't train for this in the last year that you're on it, right? Because you got to be right now. You got to start being your own. You got to be your biggest fan, man. Like you got to be your own hype dude, if that kind of makes sense. Because nobody else is gonna hype you up. And what it is, right, is like you take, and it's good, I think, that you have me and James here, because we're pretty successful when it comes to military stuff. We're retired sergeants major that may have had some adversity in our career, and regardless of what it was, we operated at the executive level. And so if you asked me how to do DTS today, I wouldn't have a fucking clue, because I always operated at levels where I had a staff to do that for me. If you don't learn to fend for yourself, no one's going to teach you how to do it here. You got to get out of your feelings. No one cares. No one cares that you got a fever, man. Like, no one cares. No one cares that you got dental. Hell, man, my teeth started breaking because I stopped going to fucking dental because nobody was making my appointments anymore. Like I'm serious. Like, I got 3 broken fucking teeth. I got to go spend a damn fortune on fake teeth now because nobody did that. Like, get out of your fucking feelings, man. Because no one's gonna care. No one's gonna ask you how you're doing every day. I joked about it earlier, man. Like, again, for all the things, I served in some pretty prestigious roles, and I figured, somebody will call me. I mean, in 2.5 years, man, nobody official Marine Corps business has called and been like, "Hey, man, how's your transition going, Sergeant Major Guerrero? one of 368 sergeants major that existed in the Marine Corps at any given point, one of 2 sergeants major that served, at any given point at one of the recruit training battalions, or the only sergeant major at the fucking F-35 training squadron that we possess as a Marine Corps. Like, nobody has ever fucking asked me how I did. Again, you got to be your own fucking biggest hype man. Mental health, again, I don't subscribe to that stuff. If you surrounded yourself with shit people your whole life, you're gonna find shit people. And the Marine Corps changed that about us. They put us around good fucking dudes. And if you didn't cling on to a couple of them because you thought you were better than them, because you couldn't let fucking whatever hometown USA go, then we can't prepare you for that. The Marine Corps is not going to prepare you for that. And again, if you find yourself easily influenced by people around you, you're going to continue to find yourself easily influenced by people around you. It's just what it is. I got out. I do real estate. I build teams for a real estate company, and I don't make money for myself. I'd rather my people around me make it. My wife doesn't appreciate that all the time, but I'd rather see other people successful than me be successful, and them just tell their kids about something that somebody did for them one day without saying my name, what I would tell them is live a life with purpose. Have a plan on how you're going to live a life with purpose, because that's what's going to matter, that you live a life with purpose where you can wake up in the morning and have a good conversation with the dude that you shave with every morning. Like, that's the most important thing.
Wow.
Have a good conversation with the dude you shave with every morning.
Damn. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, for a quick second, I was like, I don't shave with anybody. So I was confused. For a second, I was confused, but then I thought about it. But that was an amazing quote. I'm gonna steal that. That was beautiful.
That's it, man. Hey, copyright, patent pending, all that shit.
What about you? What do you got?
What I would say, and I would tell folks, man, is that you've already had the greatest job you will ever have. You've already been a part of the greatest institution that you'll ever be a part of. The reason it's important to realize that is because that stops you from looking for the same level of stuff once you're outside of the Marine Corps. Like, it doesn't fucking exist. So stop looking for it. Because what's going to happen is, if you look for that same level of brotherhood and camaraderie and sisterhood and all that stuff, you're not going to find it. So what that means is you're going to come up short every single time, and it's not going to feel good. So because I already know, I've already had the greatest job I'll ever have. I have already been surrounded, outside of my family, I've already been surrounded by the greatest humans on the face of the earth. And they go by the name United States Marine. That's it. So I no longer look for that in any other civilian employment, because they can never fucking measure up to what I found in the Marine Corps. They can't measure up. So because of that, I don't feel the need to have another job be purposeful and fulfill me. I fulfill myself. I fulfill myself with taking care of my kids and my family obligations. Like, that fulfills me. That drives me. And that has to be enough. To George's point, 100% true. If you're a senior leader, if you're a staff sergeant, if you're a gunner sergeant, it doesn't matter. If your picture is on a wall, the day you retire, as much as they love you, that picture is coming down. And now you are a memory. You have a few folks reach out, but if you're fulfilled and if you need people to reach out and ask you what's going on, you're going to be fucked, because it's not going to happen. And that's not selfish. That's not a ding on the Marine Corps, because the Corps has to keep going. And so I know that, and I love that. Hey, man, it's a new dude right now. A new picture that's up on the wall, and they're calling him for advice. Cool. I don't want you to call me any fucking way. I'm fishing. You know what I'm saying? But you got to realize and understand that the Corps must keep going to stay elite and to stay the cutting edge of the nation's fighting force, to stay America's 911 force. The Corps must keep going. So once you left the ranks, hey man, you're put on the back burner. You're on the back burner. But if you did what you were supposed to do while you were in, if you laid all the cards down before you retired, that's why it's important to not to leave too soon, and not to stay too late. You got to find a happy spot. If you leave too soon, you're going to regret it. You're not going to feel like you fulfilled. If you stay too late, you're going to be old and fucking grumpy. You got to find that sweet spot. And when you hang it up, hang it the fuck up. That's it. The Corps will move on. There are other leaders, they're great leaders. But what you got to know is that your DNA, your imprint, your leadership will continue to live on throughout the legacy and history of the Marine Corps. And then you have a sideline view of just watching it unfold. You know what I'm saying? Like you get that sideline view of saying, man, my PFCs are now first sergeants. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, I'm getting old, I got gray hair, but that's the next generation of the Corps. They're gonna lead the Corps to greatness, and I'm okay with that.
Amen. So I know I said I had one last question, but there's something this brought me up, something to my mind, and it's something that you had said, James, back in our first episode that we did, and it's something that I'm dealing with now as a recruiter. Again, is that you had said back in the day about how you're always going to let somebody down, and it's either going to be your family, the Marine Corps, or a given like a percentage of every day. You guys, as people who were in the Marine Corps for 23 years and who have family, who have wives and children, how did you deal with that on an everyday, like making sure that the Marine Corps got the part of you, but also having it with your family as well?
I saw it, man, as
balance.
I saw it sometimes as my grandmother would say, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey man, I can't make it to this because I got this Marine Corps obligation, but maybe I'll take some leave over here and I'll be at the kids' school. But it was weird because while I'm at their school, I remember we had a thing called Dad for Donuts at my kids' school. And I would go there and I'm physically present and I'm eating donuts at the Dad for Donuts breakfast. But mentally, I'm not there because I'm thinking we got to go to the field tomorrow and I'm a company gunny. Like, did this bitch get the water bowl? Is the C-wire straight? And so I'm physically there, but mentally I'm not. And so it was a constant thing of kind of that compartmentalization, right? When I think of the ability to kind of compartmentalize, I think of a lunch tray that I had in school. And in grade school, I would go up, I had my lunch tray, and there were sections. You had a section for them rotten ass peaches, a section for that cold pizza, a section for your milk, and you did not let everything spill over. And so that's how I felt. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
I was stealing a little bit of time from the Corps to give it to the boys. And then I steal a little bit of time from the boys to give it to the Corps. But now that I'm retired, I don't steal time from the kids anymore. It's like I will say, fuck all this. They come first. If they got a scrimmage, if they got a football game, man, I'm there because life is short. And I think that, I'm just blessed enough to live to make it to retirement and then retire. And now I'm be on this side of the fence. So I think that there's always some robbing Peter to pay Paul while you're in, because it's so hard to juggle all those glass balls that you can't let drop. But once you're on this side of the fence, the priority is 100% to the family. Like they no longer get robbed to pay anybody. Mm-hmm. I like working for Comcast. I love it. But if Comcast told me tomorrow, you got to miss your son's scrimmage, I'll see you later. Because I'm not missing that scrimmage. Because I missed his birth because I was in Iraq. Because multiple deployments allowed me to miss so many significant milestones in his life, I'm no longer willing to miss that. So my thoughts on it.
Yeah, like you stop willing to be or to give them second best, right? Like you stop putting them in second place. I think a lot of kind of my approach to it was I just never gave anybody any different expectation than I am a Marine infantryman and this is what I do. And my wife is wonderful about it. She hated it for a lot of years because with that life came a lot of bravado, came a lot of machismo, but it's a very different life for an infantry dude to live because of the acts that we have to kind of subscribe to. But we talked about kind of what it was going to be when we had kids, right? When we had G-Man, he's little. And so, although I was on deployments, Lily was born while we were in Japan. I mean, and again, I go back to, if you're around shit people in the Marine Corps, you're going to be around shit people the rest of your life because it takes a very special person to needle their way into the Marine Corps and still be a shitty person.
Amen.
Like you're just a shitty person if you're able to manipulate that good. and having all these guys around in Okinawa and on Camp fucking Sausage over in Camp Schwab. While my wife is at home, getting the fro to cut the fucking umbilical cord. And, and the dudes were, I mean, it was a great time as best as it could be had. I just never gave anybody any false expectation of who I was. Like I had this goal in mind. Like my job was going to be to fulfill any, and a lot of us, I think we all have the same deal. Like I didn't vote for the very first time in my life until last year. So the last election. And I'd never voted before in my life ever. And I did that very purposely because again, I took my shit serious. Like I'm an infantry dude. If anyone's going to go to fucking combat, it's going to be this guy. And it didn't matter the president I was fighting for because I didn't vote for anybody. I had to fight with every ounce of my fucking being because there was dudes around me that relied on my skill, that relied on my tenacity, that relied on my example to fucking make it there. And then to get fucking back too, because that's the harder part. You can get there, it's easy, man, but getting all those fuckers back complete is different. So, having that opportunity was great. But when we said, me and Catherine made a decision at a certain point, we got back to Beaufort and we were already starting to talk about retirement. And what we did, we drew a line in the sand. The second our kids were in letter grades, then that was it, man. Didn't matter where we're at. We're retiring, period, point blank, end of story. That's what happened. And my daughter was starting kindergarten and then boom, she hit first grade, kindergarten, dropped the appendix J. No one was changing my mind. Hey, we'll send you here. We'll send you there. Nothing was changing my mind because again, at that point, they weren't going to be second best anymore because we had come to a consensus. But the way I got through it, and maybe it was the wrong way, but I mean, she's still here. We're doing great. We have a life that we're proud of. And, we have our normal struggles, man. We're humans. But the thing about it is when we made that decision, we said that was it. At this point, the Marine Corps was going to become second best. We were okay with that. Right. And I think a lot of Marines don't dissect the cat the same way. Right. They do think that they have to, James described it perfectly, man. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it was just a thing. Like I want to say I have a choice in deployments. I don't have a fucking choice in deployments, because at a certain point, hey, Gunny, I mean, Chris did it to me at fucking 2-9. I was a company gunny at a golf company. He walks over to my office. I'm sitting there trying to order some damn chow. And he's like, hey, Gunny, hey, good afternoon, First Sergeant. Stand up. Good afternoon, First Sergeant. Hey, what would you say if you're deploying with me in 3 months? I'd say I First Sergeant. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck you want me to say? I'm going to say I First Sergeant. Oh, awesome. Darrell Carver calls me. Hey, you're fucking deploying with Weapons Company, man. Grab your shit. You're the 81's platoon fucking sergeant, and you're leaving in January. Fucking, how's Catherine feel about it? Catherine already fucking understands. She's good. Because, again, there was a communication thing that she understood. My life was to be a Marine infantryman, and we made that shit clear, and it was clearer to me than to anybody else. But to have a partner in your life that understands that whether you're an infantry guy, an LS guy, a fucking food service guy, or whatever guy, like you're a Marine right now, and like this is what's going on for the next until 2027, because that's that's the greatest advice you can give anybody to just help your significant other understand this is my job. This is my literal duty to do. I don't have a choice. I want to think I have a choice. And a lot of young Marines, a lot of senior Marines get it wrong too. And they leave disillusioned. That's when they become old and grumpy. They get disillusioned. Because, man, I don't belong over there. And then they get pissed. And then, fuck that, I'm getting out. Then the Marine Corps, really, it seems like they're kicking them to the side. No, they're just moving them out of the way to put the new guy in because this unit requires this type of person. You just got to not disillusion people with what your role is, with what your job is. If they understand that, they're going to be upset about it, man. It's human nature. They're going to be upset. They will be comfortable with it. Hell, fuck, I'm not comfortable with it. Leaving my son, leaving my daughter. It's never leaving my daughter at school in the morning. I have the privilege of dropping her off every day and picking her up every afternoon. It breaks my fucking heart. So we're not okay with it. But before she was there, 20 years before that, I made this commitment to people, to a lot of people, right? To a fucking whole society of people to say, fuck, man, here I am. Fucking send me, dude. And you, when they call you, you can't be like, nah, don't send me no more. You can't say that no more, right? I
And
mean,
the families understand it too, man.
that's
The
right.
families understand it. My kids, every now and then, Dad, how's baby G daddy doing? How's Uncle George doing? And that was years ago.
Yep.
But they still remember that. Like, I think that truly describes the essence of what we do really is family. Like, in their minds, that's their uncle. They don't give a fuck that they're black and he's Mexican. Hey, that's their fucking uncle. Like, that's just what it is.
Mhm.
And that's the way to them and me, it'll always be.
Amen.
Because it was family, you know. And last point, man, is that we all understood it. It's like, I don't care if you don't like it, we understood it. I would look at George, right, man, we want to tie one on tonight. Let's do it. Look, Oktoberfest, whatever it is. And we would just get after it, man. And I'll tell you, Benny, like, those were some of the best days of my life. And so now I can truly say that I live with no regret.
Amen.
Because when it was my time, I did what I was supposed to do. And so now I can kick back and be like, now it's somebody else's time.
Amen.
Have at it. You know what I'm saying? Fucking run hard.
Yes, sir.
But I did it when it was my time, man. And you're doing it right now, you know, the second time around, because it's your time.
Yep,
And
yep.
you're going to change lives. You're going to look back one day, Benny, and be like, holy shit, my fucking police are now fucking stats aren't, like, I'm getting old. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so it's the way it is, man.
All right. He's going to say, why'd I recruit these three motherfuckers? Shit,
Yeah.
I would put them right in the fucking office.
Well, hey, listen,
shit,
gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you guys did for me, for my family, for the Marine Corps. Thank you guys so much. You guys have any last words before we head out?
I don't know, man. Don't fuck it up, right? Whoever's listening, and you know you're still in uniform. Everyone talks about the Marine Corps change, and the Marine Corps is the damn same. That's just what it is. But you got to sacrifice a little bit of time. You got to have an ear to bend. Like that's the name of the game, man. Answer the fucking phone. Answer the phone. That's all that needs to happen. That's the difference now. Everybody's scared to answer the phone. Answer the phone. And if you got an issue with somebody, man, knock on a door. It's hard for people to say no when you're talking to them in the face, man. AC canvassing, air canvassing, and home visits. That's the easiest way to get them, motherfucker, because they know you're true.
Yep.
Answer the door. Answer the phone. It ain't hard. Mental health ain't like that. It ain't what they's talking about. It ain't like that. Answer the fucking phone or call somebody. That's just what it is, man. I spent like, I don't know, 8 to 10 grand last year flying people I know all over the country because I can't go to people that need help. That's what I do with my extra real estate income. Just make the fucking phone call, man. If there ain't somebody close to you, we'll put somebody close to you. That's the thing. And that's what you got to be about, right? Like if we're going to do the thing, let's do the thing.
Amen.
But for those of us that are still serving, just answer the phone, man. That's why you carry the phone. And the Marine Corps don't pay my phone bill. Whatever, dog. Answer the phone. It's easy. It's easy to delegate responsibility. Authority is very different. Like you can't, you don't have, well, you can, I guess responsibility is the one you can't really fuck with, but it's answer the motherfucking phone, man. It means something. It means something to people. And the shitty part is that we're learning this thing too late because again, we're scared to answer the phone. For what? What is he going to say? That he ain't ready for it? You shit, man. Ain't nobody taught us in 1998 and 1999 and 2000, September 10th, that we were going to have to learn to do the thing.
Just happened.
It didn't. Yep. It didn't. We were butter jamming, and we just stuck together, man. We just locked fucking arms, and then we did it, man. You know, when you're living live, like a fucking, like an action movie, you're looking around like, fuck, I've seen this movie before. It's your fucking life. And your dudes around you are looking at you. Answer the phone.
I only got 2 things. George said, answer the phone, 3 words. I got 3 words. My first thing is to enjoy the ride. enjoy the ride, because regardless of how bumpy, regardless of how high, how low, when it's done, it's done. So enjoy the ride. And then my second thing would be is that, much like George is saying, answer the phone. Like, there are folks that are willing, able, and always throwing you life jackets out, but you still got to grab the motherfucker. Like, you too have an obligation to reach out and grab the buoy, to grab the jacket, to grab the lifeline. Like, this whole nobody loves me, nobody cares about me bullshit. Somebody, if you're answering the phone, somebody's throwing life jackets out. But if you won't be disciplined enough to reach out and grab it, then you're gonna fucking drown, man.
Amen.
And then it's nobody's fault but yours. But there is somebody in your life, especially if you've been a Marine, somebody's throwing life jackets out, but you still gotta grab the bitch. You have to grab it. That is your responsibility to do. To be honest with yourself and say, I need a fucking life. I need a buoy right now. Somebody gonna throw it. You grab it, and the buoy is not meant to be lifelong. You may come into a spot where, like, fuck, I need a breather. I'm in the deep end, and so I grab the buoy, catch my breath, and then I let it go, and I keep fucking swimming. But if you're ever thinking in life that you're gonna grab the buoy and somebody's just gonna drag you through life, like, get the fuck out of here. No, that ain't how it's supposed to be. Grab the buoy, catch your breath, get the fuck off the buoy, be self-sufficient, and keep fucking swimming. So answer the phone, enjoy the ride, and keep fucking swimming. That's
Amen.
it, man.
All
Appreciate
right.
it, Benny.
Yep. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the night.
All right, man. Gotta be safe.
Hi, boys.
All right, fellas.